Hello, and welcome to Sideways. This week, we're getting a glimpse into Martin's childhood and his ability to remain focused for hours on end. We'll also be talking about the difficulties of painting hard rock album covers onto fondant icing. Jigsaws.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, can you hear me?
No, can you hear me?
No, can you hear me?
No, can you hear me?
I could hear some wafty guitar playing.
I better put that down.
What was you playing? A bit of Blodwyn Pig?
No, it was a new composition.
Oh, yeah, what's it called?
I don't know yet. I haven't written any lyrics.
All right, okay. It's early days then, is it?
Early days.
Early stages.
Nice day, anyway.
It's raining hard out there, which is a bit of a change from what we've been used to recently, isn't it?
Yeah. It's just the first time we've talked about the weather, isn't it?
Had no need. It's been pretty stable up till now, isn't it?
Yeah, it has. So how are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, actually. Not too bad. Yes, I'm not sure I should be going out for my daily constitutional if the weather continues like this.
Well, it's good idea to get your exercise in, isn't it?
It is, really, yeah. I might have to bite the bullet and use an umbrella. What's funny about that?
I don't know, just...
I think I've got one somewhere.
Just the picture of the mental image that I've got of you walking along with an umbrella is, for some reason, really very amusing.
I think I must have some. I'm sure I've got a couple of umbrellas somewhere. Probably one of those big old golf umbrellas.
With Standard Life on it?
The Standard Life one or something like that, one of the old insurance company ones. I had a few of those at one time, but I think that was like during the 80s and 90s, so whether they still exist.
I hope you haven't got one with a drinks brand on it.
I doubt it. I rather doubt it. I think I did have a Heineken one at one time, many years ago.
Do you need it from a beer garden? It's one of those big sunshades.
Yeah, it took a lot of carrying, but it was. I'm glad you really use it on the beach. Yes, but apart from that, no, all good. Yeah, what are we going to talk about then?
Well, I don't know.
All right, okay. I'll tell you what I'll do then. I'll start this episode.
Yeah.
With a quote from a film that I was watching.
Well, you do like a quote, don't you?
Well, yeah. Well, it gives a sort of framework to what I want to discuss with you.
Okay.
Now, I've watched a few films. I'm not a big film man, as you probably know. I don't. It's unlike me.
Attention span, have you?
I don't. I've a great struggle. Unless it catches me very quickly, I can sort of invest in films that are based on true life stories. I'm okay with that. Anything else, I do struggle with. But I've been watching a few more films during isolation. One of my friends who hosts a Facebook watch party. It's called Utter Trash Films or Utter Trash Watch Party. I can't remember what it's called now exactly, but it's he posts films on there that we all watch together, and they are really, really bad, awful films. Either very, very low budget or just completely cheesy. So I have been
heard of.
I'd never heard of any of these that I've been watching so far, and they are awful. But it's enlightened me in some areas. I must admit that there is life outside of films that are just purely documentary based or based on film. But anyway, I was watching a film called this wasn't on the Utter Trash thing. It was a film called Man Up. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's with Simon Pegg. Simon Pegg and Lake Bell. They're in the leading roles. And there was a quote from there, which I'm going to start this episode with. It was, she was looking at him and said to him, "You're an emotional jigsaw waiting to be put back together. Just look for the blue bits." Now, I think that can be interpreted and probably contextualised in a number of ways, but I sort of liked it as a standalone quote. And so the headline or the title of the episode today, I want it to be Jigsaws.
Okay.
Are you happy with that?
Yeah, that's fine. I like that quote. I was just thinking about that film, Man Up, and of course the reason I have seen it is because it's not popular.
It's not particularly popular, isn't it? I tend to like Simon Pegg. I don't know about you, but he often makes me laugh in films. I think the ones that he's involved in tend to be quite entertaining.
Yeah, I go along with that. I do like a Simon Pegg film, yes.
But yeah, the Jigsaw bit, it sort of reminded me a bit of, well, actually, it was quite a strong childhood memory. And it was a story that my Gran that used to live with me, Gan, as we've talked about before.
Yeah. I remember her well.
It's a story that she would often repeat to people, and she used to repeat this many years later, when I was at an embarrassing stage and I used to bring girlfriends home and that sort of thing. As you know, my Gan lived with us, so she could be a constant source of embarrassment if she put her mind to it. I could tell you lots of stories about that. But anyway, this particular one, the stories she often repeated, that she would tell people that she'd go out to work, she'd leave for work in the morning. She used to work for a doctor's surgery.
Mm-hmm.
She was a receptionist there. I mean, it used to be like a 3-mile walk for her. It was miles to get up there and back. But anyway, she said she'd leave for work in the morning, and I'd be sitting at the dining room table, sort of just starting a jigsaw. She often used to bring jigsaws home for me. She used to know how much I liked them. And when she got home from work, I'd still be there. I'd have had very few breaks in between because I'd just crack on until the jigsaw was finished. So she'd bring me bigger and bigger jigsaws, more and more pieces to keep me going during the day. And I used to feel like I was a failure if I didn't crack it and get and complete it by the time she got home.
Wow.
So I used to have to be sort of dragged away from it if it was bedtime, and I had to go to bed, and it wasn't finished. But I think it's sort of I'll go on to another story before I want to put this into the context of what I want to talk to you about, because also with the jigsaw business, there was a situation where often the jigsaw would be laid out, especially if it was like 1,000 or 1,500 pieces. It might be on the go for several days, and again, my brothers Paul and Russ, they would sort of get involved and put bits in from time to time and sort of muscle in on it all. And we had this situation where we wanted to be the person to put the last piece in the jigsaw. All right, so it became a real contest between me and my two brothers, and so we'd end up hiding bits around the house, right? And so suddenly we'd just come back with when it was all being finished, we'd turn right and go boom and put the last piece in and get the glory of that. But that got out of hand completely, because there ended up being loads of bits being hidden, and then people forgetting where they'd hidden the pieces. And so, Mum and Dad banned us doing that in the end. In fact, I remember also I used to make my own jigsaws. Did you ever do that?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't particularly like doing jigsaws anyway. I don't have patience for it.
No, I used to cut pictures out of Shoot, the football magazine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then paste them onto cardboard, draw the lines on, cut them out, and make a little jigsaw for myself.
Oh, so much is making sense to me now about you.
Well, it's what I wanted to talk to you about. Really, was about obsessive behaviour in childhood.
Yeah, go on.
And I've given you a sort of a bit of a framework there. I just wanted to know what your thoughts are about, if it has a bearing on, on shaping our thoughts and behaviour going forward. Really.
Yeah, definitely. I think it does. And I was just thinking, actually, before you posed that question, that there's probably some, there's some element of it that is in our nature, isn't there? So, for example, there's been a lot. There was a thread, wasn't there, on Facebook this week about someone that we both know putting up a picture of a waistcoat that you painted back in the day, because you used to paint jackets and waistcoats with album covers, right?
I did, yeah.
And very good they were too. But obviously, you would have had to invest an enormous amount of time to get the detail in those images. Because, I used to look at those, and think, crikey, it just looks exactly like the album cover. And apart from the fact I don't have the talent to do that, I would never have had the patience to do that. And so what you're talking here about, making your own jigsaws, doing a jigsaw, that sort of painting, your ridiculous behaviour in having to order everything alphabetically. There's something there about, it's not just about order, it's also, but there's something there about your, who you are, your character, isn't there? That you have the ability to kind of stay focused on something like that, whereas you might not be able to stay focused on watching a film for an hour and a half.
Yeah. Yeah, the way I wanted to work it in, really, the follow-up question was, do you think that, that's sort of obsessive behaviour, really, wasn't it, in my childhood there? Did that, Yeah. Do you think that had an impact on my relationship, my destructive relationship with alcohol at a later stage? I think I've always been very compulsive with things. When I start something, I
want a lot of order, don't you?
I do, but alcohol doesn't bring order. But I just wondered if it was, if I was coming to you and sitting in your chair and I'd explain this to you and then said, "Oh, and I've gone on to have a drink problem," would you link the two in any way?
Yeah, I probably would. And you're right that alcohol doesn't bring order, but what it does is it enables you to forget that there isn't any.
Yeah.
So one of the things that obsessive compulsive behaviour gives the illusion of is control. Okay. So if you have and obviously it's very common, those sorts of obsessive behaviours are very, very common. But if you are, some people count, some people don't want to step on the cracks in the road, some people have to go back and check doors are locked 3 times. Those sorts of behaviours, they're all about trying to maintain control over kind of future safety, if you like. So you're trying to create this situation where you feel that in response for these rituals that you play out, everything's going to be okay, right?
Yeah.
But of course, when you think about it logically and rationally, nothing can make sure that the future is okay. And if ever we needed a reminder of that, we've only got to look around ourselves at the moment.
Yeah.
So the link perhaps with a sort of slide into addiction is when that part of us recognises, well, it doesn't really matter what I do, I can't maintain the sort of order and control and certainty that I want. How do I cope with that? You really have a choice. You either accept that there isn't any certainty, or you have to find a way to deal with the discomfort that you feel from the realisation that there isn't any certainty. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does make a lot of sense. I think that, just trying to analyse it. I mean, as a psychotherapist, I know psychiatrists as well, they place quite a lot of emphasis on childhood experiences, don't you? And to a lot of things can be rooted in your childhood, which has an impact on your later life. And I just wondered if that, from going back to the original question, whether my obsessive behaviour would have made me more likely to go down a route where I was going to obsess with a substance like alcohol.
Well, yeah, I think it would, but I think there's the question that's kind of important to ask there is why did you feel the need for such obsessive behaviour in childhood? What was going on?
I can tell you, I can almost answer your question. I can answer it because it was a release from reality.
What were you trying to get a release from, though? What was the reality that you didn't want?
I'm not quite sure. That's where the problem lies, because I know what the reality of later life, what I was trying to escape from there. But in my childhood, I had a pretty idyllic childhood. But I loved the escapism of not being in the moment, but by going off into a jigsaw or doing something, I was completely focused upon that, and nothing else in the world really mattered around me.
But that's kind of the key question, and I mean, this is, part of the difficulty here is that I have some, I also have some knowledge of what life was like for you at home, because obviously I, knew your family as well. And as we discussed before, I would have looked at your situation as you were growing up and thought, crikey, that is pretty idyllic. But there was still something that was uncomfortable for you in life, because by your own admission, you're saying, I wanted to escape into doing this jigsaw. I wanted to get away from reality to do this. So, and I know we can't necessarily find the answer to that question, but the answer is quite important. Why were you trying to get away? What were you trying to get away from? What felt as if it was overwhelming? What felt as if, it was easier to not deal with it and seek sanctuary somewhere else? That's the thing that's key. And although it might not be true for you, a lot of people come and see me, and when I say to them, tell me about growing up, what was life like for you as you were growing up? I would say 9 out of 10 people say, I had a great childhood. And only later does it come out that actually it wasn't as great as they really felt it was. You know, they were kind of seeing their path through rose-tinted glasses. As I say, that isn't necessarily the case for you. But usually the way that we look back on our childhood, it takes a bit of digging before we can really find the whole truth.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. Perhaps I need to come sit in the psychotherapist chair then and sign up for a few sessions for you. You can dig around and see what's been going wrong in my childhood.
You probably need to see someone else. I don't think I'll be a very good person to work on.
No, I want to see someone good, obviously. But I think it's quite an important distinction we need to make also between like obsessions and OCDs, because I think people throw this term around, and we talked about labels and things before about I think I'm a bit OCD about things. You're not really, are you? I mean, OCDs can be very they can have an awfully bad impact upon your life, can't they?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I've seen some really quite extreme OCDs, but as you say, quite often it's also, sometimes we can obsess over our behaviour and think that it's a massive problem when in reality it's not necessarily a massive problem.
Yeah.
But yes, if you have an obsessive behaviour that actually has a detrimental impact on your life, then obviously something needs to be done about it.
Yeah, I think it was going back to the waistcoats, etc., and the jackets that I used to do those paintings on. I remember getting great joy from them. Obviously, it was my first excursion into running my own business, really, because I was doing those whilst I was at school. So I was earning money from doing that, which I really liked. And I saved up enough money from that to buy my first motorbike, etc. So I was quite keen on that, on doing it. But I would be obsessive about getting it right. And I remember my dad saying to me on one occasion, "What happens if it goes wrong?" And I'd never considered that. Up to that point, I'd never considered me getting it wrong. And I never did get one wrong because obviously we're painting over it. The only disaster would be, if I spilled paint all over the sleeves or something like that, or over the front, or places it shouldn't have gone. But I was pretty obsessive of keeping the rest of the garment free from any sort of anything like that.
But that sort of drive for that drive for perfection is also something that is very strong in you, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we talked about that before, haven't we? Perfectionism, and why it can be quite debilitating.
Well,
it can be
because perfection. If you feel that you need perfection, we all get almost guaranteed to fail. In fact, while we're talking about this, because we're talking about painting jackets, I can remember when you did the same thing. You painted a cake I'd made for our friend's 50th birthday.
Yeah.
You painted. It was a Black Sabbath album cover, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
And to everybody who saw that, it was amazing. It was like, that's just such a fantastic bit of work. But you weren't happy with it, were you?
No, I wasn't. I mean, I'd never worked on icing before, and it was really soft, and it was really pliable, and it was a very difficult surface to work on, and so it was a real challenge. And I found if you dropped a bit of paint again in the wrong place, there you couldn't cover it up. It was a one hit, and you had to get it right first time, and that was quite stressy. But I was really pleased with the outcome of it, but it wasn't as good as I could have done it.
Yeah,
I don't think I ever finished a jacket and thought I'm 100% happy with that. I never am with anything. There's always, I know we talked about this before. I listen back to these episodes that we record, and I'm never happy with them.
No,
there's always something that I think I should have said that, or this is not quite what I wanted to say, or.
But there is a link with, a potential link with something like addiction, because what you're describing is that whatever you do, you can always criticise yourself for it afterwards. Therefore, that's always going to have a detrimental impact on your self-image. So it's like you can do anything. You can always tell yourself after the event that you're not really enough, right? And so if you're never enough, that's going to be an anxious, stressful state to be in. And one of the things you're probably going to want to do then is to get away from yourself. And a good way of getting away from yourself is to get absolutely plastered all the time.
Yeah.
because then you don't have to be around yourself. And of course, as we've also discussed, in drinking yourself into oblivion in order to get away from yourself, you feel even worse about yourself because now you're an alcoholic. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It's a very interesting cycle, and I think that I feel like I've got a bit of free advice there. I'm sitting in the psychotherapist chair, even though I'm a couple of miles away from you.
Well, this is how I have to work now.
Yeah,
I quite like it. Actually, I'm not sure I'm ever going to go out again.
Well, I mean, your work suits perfectly to doing using Skype and WhatsApp and that sort of thing, doesn't it? I mean, it must.
Yeah, it's harder work though.
Is it?
Yeah, it's exhausting because there's something that you lose about not being in a room with someone. There's the sort of little nuance of body language. There's something different about it. And I was saying to someone just the other day that if I see the same number of clients over video as I would have done sitting in a room with them, I feel more exhausted now than I would have done in the past, because it's harder work like this. I mean, it's hard work talking to you at the best of times, but.
Oh well, yeah. So likewise, but I think you're probably right. I mean, it's we find we have a Zoom meeting every evening, as we talked about before, on the Aspire to Be, the charity, and it's nice. Don't get me wrong, it's nice to have that regular contact, but it's not. It still isn't the same. I mean, a lot of people have been saying that they miss the physicality of it, but we often have a hug and that sort of thing, and it's missing that. That's the element that's missing.
Mm. I enjoy not having any physical contact with you.
Oh, I enjoy it immensely. The only thing I don't enjoy about not coming round to yours to record, I can't make you angry about having my coffee too close to your computer. In fact, I've put mine quite close to my computer just to sort of replicate the situation. It's not quite the same.
Hang on, I want to get back to Jigsaws because there's just something I wanted to ask you about. I can't remember what it was.
You're dragging it back. It's normally me dragging it back on course. You're just dragging it back.
I know you've gone a bit off piece this morning. Jigsaws. Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you about. That's interesting, isn't it? That feeling of when Gan was getting you ever increasing sizes of jigsaws, you still felt that need to have completed it by the time she got home. What was that all about?
I'm not really sure. I think it was showing my appreciation for the gift she gave me. That if I'd have just put one or two pieces together and then gone off and played football or something, she'd have come home and thought, it hasn't hit the spot there. It's not what he wants. It's not what he likes. So
that's your assumption.
It is my assumption, but I think I was showing a level of gratitude by indulging in it fully. But I liked it anyway. It wasn't a hardship.
Yeah, although I'd say that line of thinking suggests that you're taking responsibility for Gan's emotions rather than keeping responsibility for your own.
Okay.
Because if you'd wanted to do 10 pieces and then go out and play football, well, I know if Gan were here and we could ask her, she'd say, yeah, that's fine. I gave it to him because I wanted it to give him some pleasure. And if he got pleasure from 10 pieces and then he wanted to go and play football, fine. But what you're worried about is that if you only did 10 pieces, she'd come in and think, oh, he doesn't really like jigsaws, and therefore you would upset her.
I would, but I thought there wouldn't be another one coming along pretty soon as well. It was keeping the constant stream of jigsaw presents coming the whole time. So there was a bit of that in there as well.
Mm. What other sort of behaviours did you have then in childhood that you could consider the same sort of in the same realm?
Obsessive ways, you mean?
Yeah.
I suppose I would, we talked about keeping my CDs in order. Well, I used to keep all my, certainly all my football magazines in proper chronological order. And I would keep them in season order as well. And in fact, I got to the point where I did make my own sort of boxes up for them with covers on them that would protect them. So I could, and they ended up in the loft with 1973-74 season. That would be in one box with a big folder around it, and I used to put a shoelace right. I used to punch holes in them and put shoelaces right through them to make sure they were kept in order. And so it was that sort of thing that I would do and spend hours and hours and hours doing. When I inherited a stamp collection, and I took all the stamps out of I wasn't happy at the stamps. There was hundreds and hundreds of stamps in this album. I wasn't happy with the way they were presented, so I took them all out and redid a loose leaf version of it in it and put them all into the different countries. I drew pictures of the the country from a map on the front of each leaf and this sort of thing. And it took me weeks and weeks and weeks to do. But I self-indulged myself in that, so I could do a bit of artwork, but I got the order back to it that I felt that the stamps deserved.
What were other? So while you were spending all that time doing those sorts of things, what were your brothers doing?
I don't really know. I was pretty alone
in a world of your own.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, obviously my older brother Russ, he was sort of 4.5 years older than me. He had other interests anyway. He was off out with his mates and stuff. And Paul, being much closer to me, and he's younger, he'd just come and annoy me from time to time. I wanted to go back to. I wanted to talk to you about an extract from one of your blogs, actually. So it shows you, I do read your blogs. Mm-hmm. I read them all when they come online, and there's an extract from your blog.
You print them off and keep them in order.
They're in. Luckily they're all they're digitally in order, aren't they? So I don't have to do any. There's no input required, and I can release myself from the necessity and the compulsion to deal with that, because you've done that. It's fine, and I'm happy with that. And I can dip in and out. I think digitalisation of stuff has been a godsend for me, really.
Yeah, I suppose.
So I don't have to I have to physically try and get stuff into any sort of order. But you did a blog called "How to Play the Guitar," and there's a particular line in there that said there are a lot of issues that come from not doing things properly in the first place, and the gaps in knowledge and understanding left in their wake.
Yeah,
I'm not quite sure how I was going to interpret that, but I thought it fitted into this quite well. I mean, okay, I'll ask you, what did you mean by that?
Well, it had. Well, I think when I wrote that, it had a twofold meaning. It had a literal meaning, because I think it was, if I remember rightly, it was in reference to a question my daughter asked me about how to use your fingers to pick the strings.
Yes.
And so part of its meaning is, because I didn't learn to do that properly when I started to play, I now don't do it properly, and so that limits me in some ways. So that was one meaning, and the other meaning was, I was thinking about specifically. I was thinking about, this is an example. It isn't the only example, but it is an example. The way that perhaps we have relationships with other people. You know, if you don't really learn how to relate to people properly, then you tend to continue to make the same mistakes over and over and over again, until you realise that it's because you're not doing things properly. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I suppose the context I read it in, it sort of scared me a little bit, because I thought there's a lot of stuff that I stumble into that I never that I don't start off doing properly, and I think that that doesn't fit my particular personality. But it did make me think about, things that I probably have started and thought, I'm never going to get very good at this. I'm never going to do this, and disbanding it, or abandon it, I should say, and go and do something else instead.
But I think the reason that's so important, and it's a very useful point of distinction in this conversation, is because the inference from what you're saying is that if you take something up and you find you're not much good at it, the likelihood is you'll let go of it.
Yeah.
Right? So, and I could list countless examples of that. I mean, I can remember once we had a conversation about how if you're playing a video game, you've got to get to the end, haven't you? You've got to finish it.
Yeah.
So that's something about you. If you start doing something, you need to do it well, and you need to be able to see progress, because you don't like failure. Whereas I can remember having a conversation with my own therapist a while ago, where I said, one of the things that occurs to me is that I can do a lot of things, but I don't do any of them brilliantly. So, this is not a judgment in any way, but one of the points of difference between you and I is that I'm pretty happy to do something not very well, and I'll still get joy from doing it. But you don't really get as much joy from doing something not very well. And so that will necessarily have an impact on, the way you behave, the way you live your life, and the things that you'll pick up and won't pick up. I'm kind of perhaps more okay with failure.
I think yes. The fear of failure has always been an issue that I've had.
Well, it's an enormous pressure, isn't it?
It is. It is enormous pressure. But I think that obsessive behaviour, whether that would be classed as a mental health issue or not, but it sort of leads on nicely onto what the next part of the discussion I wanted to talk to you about, which is all related to going to the jigsaw business. But what we often discuss in groups about what comes first, whether you have a mental health issue that drives your addiction, or if the addiction drives your mental health issues, and there's never seems to be an answer. There seems to be this vicious circle, and it depends just which part of the circle you jump in at or out of to analyse as to what was the primary driver in all this. And I think that a lot of us will feel that perhaps we had mental health issues, even though they may have been fairly slight, or that they were growing issues, that once they attached themselves to an addictive product, the circle was complete. And it would then start to fire around in this horrible circle where the more you drank and the more drugs that you took would then fire and make your mental health issues worse, which in turn would make you want to drink more and take more drugs to counteract those feelings and the way you were behaving. And so it begins. And so it continues on until it either destroys you or you go into recovery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we kind of touched on that earlier on, didn't we? Because it could be sometimes that a slide into addiction is a manifestation of an existing mental health issue that was kind of unconscious, if you like, almost. But that the drinking or the drug taking or whatever it is brings it into a consciousness that then kind of feeds it, so it begins to feed itself. So if you didn't notice something about yourself that you were trying to escape from before you started drinking, now you definitely recognise something that you want to get away from, which is your addict self. One of the things that we've spoken about a lot is how it's very difficult for someone in the throes of addiction to accept that they have to embrace the addict in them. You can't jettison it. You can't cut that part of you out. You can't say, I don't like this addict part, I need to get rid of it. You have to bring it in order to take care of it, to stop it being so destructive to you. You kind of have to love it, because this is a part of you that is acting out against something, or maybe different things, but you cannot cut out that part that you don't like, for want of a better phrase. You have to embrace it and love it, because that's the only way that you can tame it and stop it from being so destructive to you.
That's quite an interesting viewpoint, actually. I don't know if we've ever discussed that before, about bringing the addict into yourself and loving it. But can you remind us, because I think it's quite an important point that comes up quite a lot in groups as well. Remind us how you deal with people that come to you for counselling when they're still in the throes of addiction. I mean, they have to get that under control first, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say to people who are still in the throes of their addiction that there's very limited value that you can get from any sort of psychotherapeutic work if you're still, smoking drugs or injecting drugs or drinking or whatever, because, you're not, your mind is altered. So it's very difficult for you to do any sort of significant work on the underlying reasons for your addiction if you're still in the throes of your addiction. So I would always say to someone, well, the best thing for you to do is to, get some support to get clean, and then do some work on trying to find out what perhaps the reasons are that you find yourself in this place in the first instance.
Yeah, I think it's an important aspect, because again, a lot of people come into groups and are, they're in that circle where one of their conditions is driving the other, and trying to get one of them sorted out first. And sometimes I think, because we hold on to our drink and drugs as a last resort, it's almost as if we wanted to deal with their mental health issues, because we think by getting that under control, that will then help us to control their drinking and drug taking. But I know, again from experience, that never really works. It never really works. You've got to get that, because if I could imagine me sitting in a psychiatrist or a psychotherapist chair when I was drunk, I would never take anything in anyway, and it certainly wouldn't be improving the way I was feeling, because I'd be straight out of there and go straight for a drink anyway. Because I would have found it very tricky to sit in a chair with someone whilst I was craving for a drink, for example.
Of course you would, and even if you're coming in and you haven't had a drink, the fact that you're still using that drug means that you haven't yet really got to the point where you have a kind of willingness to look at what's going on underneath, because you've always got that as a fallback. That's not much good, is it? You can't really. Now, there are times where I'll be working with someone and they may have a dependency on drink, but if that's not what they've come to deal with, well, it's not for me to say, well, hang on, I can't work with you because it seems to me you've got a dependency on drink over here. So we're really talking here about people who come saying, listen, I've got a dependency on drink or drugs, but I want to sort it out, but I'm not going to stop yet. They're the people that we're talking about.
Well, I think it's an important point, because a lot of people look for other fixes rather than, they say, I want to go and get hypnotherapy to stop me drinking.
Yeah,
I'm going to go and get help to get my mental health sorted out, because my drinking will automatically stop then.
Yeah,
but I've never found that. I've never come across someone who's successfully done that.
No, because as we've discussed before, to take drinking as an example, the only time someone stops drinking is when they decide to, and so that decision that's about taking responsibility for your own life. And when I say that, I know I might say it glibly, and I'm not suggesting that it's easy, but you're not going to be able to stop drinking until you decide, actually, I've got to stop drinking now. You and I both know that someone else asking you to stop, pleading with you to stop, even people who you love dearly, doesn't make any difference. So
True.
If you're not ready, if you haven't got to the point where you're ready to say, actually, I'm now taking responsibility for my life, I need to change direction, I need to find out why I'm in this position. If you aren't there, then really the best psychotherapeutic help in the world is not going to do anything for you.
You're almost giving yourself permission to drink or to take drugs because you think, well, I'm doing something about it anyway.
Yes,
I'm getting help.
Precisely, it's exactly that, isn't it? It's well, I'm doing something about it. It's like I'm going to stop when I feel better. No, you've got to stop first. Then you can start to feel better.
Yeah.
Exactly. If you wait until I'm gonna stop doing this when I feel a bit stronger. Yeah, but you're not going to feel any stronger, because all the time that you're waiting to feel stronger, you're still doing the thing that's making you feel weak.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. That makes absolute sense. And I wanted to sort of drag this back a little bit back. I wanted to the jigsaw. I wanted to use it as sort of a metaphor, if you don't mind, to sort of end this particular episode, because I always see that we have to set the pieces of the jigsaw. We have to get those in order to rebuild our lives, if you like. And I mean, most people, when you start a jigsaw, and you're probably the same as most people, will sort the pieces out. So you'll have the outside piece. You do the outside first, and to me, that represents the sort of you're getting your addiction under control. That's the outside bit. Still the edges, and then you can start to fill the pieces in, which represents dealing with the underlying issues, and so you can get yourself back to the picture that you want. So going back to the original quote that we talked about from the film about looking for the blue bits, in the jigsaw. To me, that represents the areas that need to be dealt with first. So you're picking out those bits, not necessarily dealing with or picking the lowest hanging fruit, going back to the old corporate days, but dealing with those issues, looking for the blue bits, the bits that that you can patch together and start to make sense of. And then you can move on and start to complete the picture. I see myself as I'm still putting the pieces back into my jigsaw, but it's getting ever closer to that point. It won't ever get to that point, as we discussed before, where I'm completely happy with everything that's going on. But each piece that goes in, it makes me feel that bit better.
But that realization that you'll never complete the jigsaw, I think, is a very important realization for all of us. Because completing the jigsaw in that sense is like completing life. Well, you're not going to do that, are you? You're never going to get to the point where you think, oh, actually, that's it. I've done it. I've reached the pinnacle. I can't go any further, because to be honest, that's a terrifying thought that you could ever get there. We are a work in progress for the whole of our lives. And it's interesting what you say about the blue bits, because the very first thing, I hadn't remembered that quote, but the very first thing that I thought when you said that the quote was, at the end of the quote was, look for the blue bits, I thought, the sky's the hardest part, and if the blue bits are a representation of our emotional selves, then that is the hardest part. But the most important thing is not to give yourself a hard time that you haven't completed it. Yeah, look for the blue bits, try and get them together as best you can, but don't expect to have finished it before Gan gets home, because it won't be done. You have to kind of let that be okay.
It's bizarre. I mean, this has been. We've been quite serious today, haven't we? Really?
No, we'll probably lose a lot of listeners.
I think so, yeah, because we've been much more jocular. It's just that it was just that one line from the film just sparked my whole interest off, and it also, when I started writing my notes on it, it all sort of poured out and made sense. And I hope people that listen to it see it does make a little bit of sense. There's sort of talking about, I know people in the addiction and in the recovery circle will understand what I'm saying. A lot of these things. Yeah, no,
I think it's a great quote. Actually, it's very good.
I still get. I've been doing. You can do jigsaws online now as well, can't you? I mean, they're great. I don't know if you've ever tried them.
No, I don't. I don't do jigsaws. I mean, the only time I do jigsaws, I did a few with my daughter a couple of years ago, and then she seemed to be really keen on them. And then I bought her a couple for Christmas, and they've stayed in the box ever since. So I know how you were worried that Gan would feel if she bought you a jigsaw and you didn't do it.
Yeah.
So no, I'm not a big jigsaw. I'm not a big one for jigsaws. I do like a word game, a Scrabble or something like that.
Yeah, but the jigsaws, they give when you do them online, there's a satisfying thudding noise as each piece clicks into place, which I really like. It reminds me a little bit. I can't remember which football game we used to play, a video game we used to play together, where the noise of the ball hitting the net had this really lush sound. It's really lovely sound. It's the best thing about the game.
And
it's a bit like, it might have been kick-off. There's a really nice noise as the ball nestled in the net, sort of a whooshing noise.
Yeah.
And it sort of almost, when that ball used to go in the net like that, it used to release it almost like endorphins. It used to give you a bit of pleasure. And when you're doing the jigsaw online, you get the little bit that goes in, it goes dum, and you get this little noise as the piece goes in. That's lovely. And when it completes, and the lines all disappear, and you get this lovely high def picture there. It's just fantastic. I love it. But again, it's probably not relevant, but I thought I'd throw it in there as we're talking about jigsaws.
Oh yeah, it is relevant, and it's certainly much better for you than vodka.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's the bottom line, isn't it?
I think it is the bottom line. I think it's so. The bottom line is whatever gives you pleasure, that's fine. But if it's damaging you or anybody else, then it probably needs a rethink.
Jigsaws are better than vodka. We can leave it there, can't we? That's a great quote to end on.
Yeah, there's no greater ending than that, is there?
No, I think it's special.
All right.
Good. Well, thank you very much.
See you next week.
Sideways was created by Graham Landy and Martin Pankhurst. If you want to read more about our work, visit grahamlandywellbeing.co.uk/sideways-podcast. You can follow us on Twitter, and you can email us with any questions or to let us know what you think of the show. And finally, we want to thank you for listening and ask that if you've enjoyed what you've heard, that you spread the word. And we'll see you next week.